welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing really well. I have such a cute tutorial for you guys today. It is these gorgeous beaded fairy wings that I used as a headphone accessory, but you can use this for pretty much anything you want. A hanging decoration, statement piece, or even like a keychain for your bag, anything you want. So let's just get into the tutorial. So for this project I've got this blue cotton yarn, and this is slightly finer in thickness than the original yarn that I used. So for the other colour, as you can see, I used like a proper double knit cotton yarn. However, I just really like this colour. I don't think that the thickness of the yarn is going to make too much of a difference to the size. So I've probably got just under 100 grams, but I would definitely recommend that you do not need this much. I think 50 grams, just under 50 grams is perfectly fine as well. We're only making 4 small pieces of the wings and then attaching them together, and then we're just doing some small curls at the bottom, and then everything else is just beaded on. So nice and simple, and I definitely think you could use this with some scrap yarn. But yeah, I would definitely recommend, just to be on the safe side, somewhere between 25 to 50 grams of yarn. I'm going to be using a 2.5mm hook for this project. As I say in so many of my videos, my tension is quite loose, so I just like to size down a hook to make sure that all of my stitches are nice and neat and compact. If you want to use the hook size that you are comfortable using with double knit yarn, then you can do that. It's just that I personally prefer to have something a little bit more dense, so I like to size down a hook. So I would suggest anywhere between 2.5 and 3.5mm hook. Then going to need some scissors. And then for the bead section, I've got a selection of beads, but I am thinking maybe alternating between like a blue and this purple over here. And then I've just got a couple of these pearls that I might add to the bottom of the wings, like I did in my original design. So if you don't want to use any beads, then you can just skip this step. You don't need any sewing needles or embroidery thread, but if you are embellishing your project, then I would suggest just using some plain craft beads. So yeah, I've got this selection here that I got from a charity shop, but you can just get it from pretty much any craft shop. And then I highly recommend, for whatever bead you're using, you try out a few different sewing needles. These are very small, sharp ones, and so if I'm going to be using these small ones, these blue ones down here, you just want to make sure that your needle does fit all the way through, and mine does for this. And I'm just going to check as well for these purple ones, because I might use some of them too, and it fits through there. So I highly recommend, if you've got a collection of needles, just trying out different ones to make sure that your beads do fit through the one that you eventually pick. And then I've just got some embroidery thread. Now this is definitely a lighter embroidery thread. This embroidery thread's definitely a little bit more on the translucent side. It's not like fully opaque, it's kind of got a sheen to it. Okay, so I'm just going to be starting off with the larger wing, and the larger wing is basically going to be a large section on the right side, and then on the left side I'm going to have these 2 little extended wings. So I'm going to start off by just making a slip knot. And I'm going to chain 2 to start off with. So I just chain 1 and then chain 2, like that. And then into that second chain, I'm going to flip the chain over, and I'm going to insert my hook into the horizontal bump right behind that second chain, and I'm going to do 2 single crochets into that chain. So that's 1, and that's 2. Okay, so at the end of the first row, you're going to have 2 stitches. So the second row, I'm going to turn the work around. I'm not chaining 1, I'm just turning it around to work on the back of the work. And I'm going to do 2 single crochets into each stitch, which is going to bring the stitch count up to 4. So I'm going to single crochet into the first stitch, and then again do the same thing to increase it. So that's 2 stitches in that first one, and then again 2 single crochets into that second stitch. Okay, so now we have 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now I'm going to start my third row, so I'm just going to turn the work around, And for the third row, I'm just going to simply do 1 single crochet into each stitch. So 1 into each of these. No increases for this row. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Then for row 4, I'm going to turn the work again. We're now working on the back of the work. And I'm going to do an increase stitch, so I'll do 2 single crochets in that first stitch and in that final stitch. And then in those 2 stitches in between, I'm just going to do 1 single crochet. So I'm just increasing at the edges. So 2 single crochets into the first, then 1 single crochet into the next 2 stitches, and then into that final stitch 2 single crochets. And this is going to bring your stitches up to 6. As you can see there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I'm going to turn the work again. So for row 5, I'm just going to simply do 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way across. So no increases. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So for my 6th row, I'm going to turn the work, and now I'm on the back of the work. And I'm going to start the extended wing. So the extended wing is basically going to be 2 little diagonal lines kind of going out towards the left, and it's just a cool detail that I wanted to add. So for the extended wing, I'm going to start off by doing a single crochet, a chain 1, and a single crochet into the same stitch. So single crochet into the first stitch, then chain 1, and single crochet into that same stitch. So that's your first little extended wing. It's just kind of like a little point. And then I'm going to start my next one. So I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch. So I'm going to insert my hook, yarn over, and pull through. And then I'm going to pull that first loop through the second. So I'm just slipping that stitch. And then I'm going to do a double crochet. So yarn over, insert my hook into the same stitch, yarn over, and pull through. Yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops. Then yarn over and pull through those second 2 loops to have your double crochet. Then I'm going to create that point again, so I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to slip stitch into that second back bump, just like we did at the beginning. I'm going to slip stitch into it this time, so inserting my hook, yarn over and pull through, and then pull that first loop through the second, so I'm just slipping it through. Then I'm going to do another double crochet in that exact same space where we've done that first double crochet. Just double crochet into that. And then to finish this second extended wing, I'm then going to do a slip stitch into that same space where we've just done those 2 double crochets. So there's quite a lot going on in that second stitch, but once you've done it, we don't have to return back to these extended wings. It's nice and simple from here. So now for the end of this row, row 6, I'm going to just do 1 single crochet into the next 4 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So for row 7, I'm just going to turn the work, and like I said before, we're just going to be ignoring these extended wings now. I'm not going to be touching them, and I'm just going to be working in these 4 stitches. So for my 7th row, I'm going to just do an increase at either edge. So 2 single crochets into the first stitch and 2 single crochets into the last stitch, and then 1 in those middle ones. So 2 single crochets into the first stitch, 1 single crochet into the next 2 stitches, and then in that 4th stitch, 2 single crochets, like that. Okay, so now you're going to have 6 stitches in your row. So now I'm just going to turn the work to start my next row, again ignoring these extended wings now, and we're just purely working on this section here. And I'm just going to do 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way across, so no increases, just 1 in each stitch. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and last one, 6. Okay. And then for my next row, turn the work again, working on the back of the work this time, and I'm going to do another increase row. This time again I'm going to increase at either edge, so 2 single crochets into the first and last stitch, and then 1 single crochet into these middle stitches. So 2 single So 2 single crochets into this first one, 1 into the next 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and then 2 single crochets into that last stitch. And this is going to bring your stitches up to 8. Now for my next row, turn the work again, now working on the front of the work, and I'm just going to do 3 rows this time of single crochets, so just 1 single crochet into each stitch for the next 3 rows. So just 1 in each stitch, so that's 1 row of that complete. Now I'm going to do my second row, turn the work, 1 single crochet into each stitch. Okay, so that's my 3 rows of single crochet complete, and now I'm going to complete my next row, which is now going to be a decrease row. So we're going to be doing the opposite of the increase. So this time, instead of making 2 single crochets into those edge stitches, I'm actually now just going to be skipping those first stitches and then single crocheting into the middle ones. So I'm just going to turn the work, now working on the back, and I'm going to basically skip that first stitch, and then I'm just going to do 5 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and then you'll have 2 stitches left. I'm going to skip that next stitch and I'm just going to do a single crochet into the last stitch, and this is going to bring your stitches down to 6 instead of 8. For my next row, I'm going to turn the work and I'm just going to do 1 single crochet into each stitch, so just 6 single crochets. Then for my next row, turn the work, now working on the back of the work, and I'm going to do another decrease row. So again, I'm going to skip my first stitch and single crochet into the next 3 stitches. And then I'll have 2 stitches left. I'm going to skip my next one and single crochet into that next stitch. So you'll now bring your stitches down to 4. And then for the next 2 rows, I'm just going to be doing single crochets. So now working on the front of the work, turning the work, and just doing 1 single crochet in each. And then finally, turning the work again, and I'm just going to do another row of single crochet. It's nice and simple because there's just 4 stitches in this row, so you should get it done pretty quickly. Okay. So now this is the final row. I'm going to be turning the work, so we're now on the front of the work, and I'm going to be doing this pointed edge, which is just going to give the effect of that kind of pointed part at the tip of the wing. So I'm going to skip the first stitch and I'm going to do a double crochet into the second stitch, and then I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to create that point again, so I'm going to skip that first chain and I'm going to insert my hook into that second back bump, and I'm going to do a slip stitch. Then I'm going to do a single crochet into that same space where we just done the double crochet. So just a single crochet there, like that. And then finally I'm going to skip the next stitch, and into that final stitch of the row I'm going to do a slip stitch, like that. Okay, and that is your large wing all finished. So I'm now just going to make a chain 1 to fasten off, and then I'm going to cut the yarn, and I'm going to cut a long enough tail that I can now weave this in. And now you just want to weave both of these ends in, and then I'm going to show you how to make the smaller wing. So just take the same yarn again, and this smaller wing is going to go much faster. So I'm just going to make my slip knot. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to do 2 single crochets into that second back bump. So that's 1 and that's 2. Then I'm going to turn the work, And I'm just going to do 2 single crochets into the first stitch, and then I'm just going to do a single crochet into the second stitch. So instead of increasing the stitches by 2, I'm just going to increase the stitches in this row by 1. So I'm just going to do 2 single crochets into the first stitch and 1 single crochet into the final stitch. So I'm going to have 3 stitches now in my row. Then I'm going to turn my work again for my next row, and I'm going to do an increase into the first stitch, so 2 single crochets, and then I'm going to do 1 single crochet into each stitch across for the rest of the row. So now I'm going to have 4 stitches in my row, and then for the next row I'm just going to turn the work and I'm going to do 1 single crochet into each stitch across. So just nice and simple, no increases. Okay. Then for my next row, I'm going to turn the work again. This time I'm going to be decreasing, so I'm going to skip the first stitch and I'm going to do a single crochet into the next stitch, and then I'm going to just do single crochets into each stitch across. So now I'm going to bring my stitches down to 3 instead of 4. Then for my next row, I'm going to turn the work and I'm just going to do 1 single crochet into each stitch. And then for my next row, I'm going to turn the work again and I'm going to do another decrease row. So I'm going to skip the first stitch and I'm just going to do my 2 single crochets. So 1 in the next stitch and 1 in that final stitch. And then for my next row, which is going to be the final row, I'm going to do 1 more decrease row. I'm going to skip that first stitch and I'm just going to do a single crochet into that last stitch. So at the end of your wing you'll have 1 stitch in the row, and then I'm just going to chain 1 and fasten off. I'm going to pull that through and I'm just going to weave these ends in. Once you've weaved in all of your ends, you're then just going to want to sew the wings together. So I like to do it kind of piece by piece, so I like to do the top ones first and then the bottom ones. So I'm just going to take some of my yarn on a sewing needle and I'm just going to start by kind of lining these up, and then I'm going to go from the back to the front and I'm just going to kind of join the bottom sections together. And once I've done that, I'm then going to grab my next wing, which is the bottom one, and I'm going to go into the top of it and pull through like that, and I'm just going to join it to the left wing. So once that's attached, you can then just grab your next wing and start attaching that one as well. Okay, so now I've got both of these fairy rings. I'm now just going to place one on top of the other, and I'm basically just going to attach the 2 together with slip stitches all around the outside edge. So take your main colour and make a slip knot, and you can attach this at any point. So I'm just going to start kind of on the left top wing and just kind of on the side here. So I'm just going to push my hook through both sides of that section and pull my slip knot through, Then I'm just going to chain 1 to attach it, and then we can start slip stitching. So I'm going to go now into my next sort of space on the top wing. Because I'm left-handed, I'm going to kind of work from left to right all the way around. If you're right-handed though and you start in this section, you'll probably be working down and going up and around, that type of thing. So I'm going to push my hook into the next sort of space on both sides of the wing, like that, and then I'm just going to make a slip stitch. So I'm going to yarn over and pull through both of those wings, and then I'm going to slip the first loop under the second, or through the second, to make that slip stitch. And I'm not doing these super tight because I do want to keep the main shape of the fairy wing, so I'm kind of just doing a looser tension with these. They're not too loose, but definitely not too tight. So now I'm just going to go into the next sort of space on the front wing, and then the next space on the back wing, and then make my slip stitch again. And I'm just continuing this literally into each space all the way around the edge. Okay, so I've just attached both of the wings together and fastened off, and then I've just weaved the ends into the back of the work, and now I'm going to just be doing the little kind of curls right at the bottom. So I'm going to flip the fairy wings upside down, and I'm going to make a slip knot with my main colour. And I'm going to basically insert my hook into the bottom kind of tip edge right here, and then I'm going to pull the slip knot through and then chain 1 to attach it. So you can do as many chains as you want for the curls. Obviously the more you do, the longer the curls are going to be. I'm going to probably do about a chain of 28. Okay, so once you have your chain, you're then just going to go into the second chain from the hook. I'm not going to go into the back bump, I'm actually just going to go into this chain, and I'm going to do 2 single crochets into each chain. So into that second one I'm going to do 2 single crochets, and then into the next one 2 single crochets, to the next one 2 single crochets. And I'm just going to keep going all the way up, and you'll notice that once you get to kind of the end of the row, all of your work has started to curl up. Okay, so once you have done all of your 2 single crochets in each stitch, I'm then just going to slip stitch back into this kind of tip edge. So I'm going to grab the next slip stitch on that edge, so not the one that we attached the yarn to, but I'm going into the next one. I'm just going to make my slip stitch to attach it, like that. And then I'm just going to chain 1 and fasten off. Okay, so I've just completed my second curl on the bottom of the fairy wing. Now I'm going to show you how we embroider all of the beads. So I'm going to start off with something really simple. I'm literally just going to go right around the outline of the wings, missing out the curls at the bottom, but I'm going around the outline of the wings with the beads. It's pretty much just that. So again, you can start any way you want. I'm just going to start kind of on the left top wing, and I've got my embroidery thread and my needle to start the stitching. So I'm just going to go up, and I'm just going to hold the kind of end with my finger, and I'm going to go back down a few times just so that I can weave this end in a little bit. I'm going to be alternating, I think, between blue beads and purple beads. So I'm just going to grab a couple of, like a chunk of the blue beads, and some of the purple beads. So I'm just going to grab maybe 6 beads in total. So I'm going to just alternate, and I'm going to place a bead on my needle and put it through like that. So there's 1 bead, and I'm going to grab a purple one. That's 2. Let's just slide it down, and then a blue one, 3, purple one, that's 4, a blue one, that's 5, and then a purple one, which is 6. Okay, so just thread it all the way down, and you'll see now that they are like stacked on top of each other, and then you can just basically thread back down to the fairy wing. So you just kind of want to position the beads in that direction of the outline, and then push your needle through to where the last bead is sitting on the fairy wing. So you want to push the needle through the fairy wing and then pull through, and then you'll see that the beads are sitting nicely on top in kind of a straight line. Okay, so now you just want to go back up into that same position, and you basically then just want to repeat the same thing. So this kind of section of the fairy wing is quite small, so I'm probably only going to do about 3 beads, and my last one was purple, so I'm going to start off with blue. That all the way down. Okay, and then I'm just going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to position it in that direction that I want it, so I kind of want it to go inwards a little bit, and where that last blue bead sits, I'm going to push my needle through that area on the fairy wing, like that. Okay, so just pull that through. Like that, and then you'll see how it has just kind of followed that line, and that's pretty much all you want to do for the outline. I'm just going to alternate between purple and blue. I'm going to go all the way around. Okay, so just to kind of give you a visual of what I'm actually going to be sewing and the design of it, I'm basically going to create this kind of cracked effect. It was definitely inspired by like dragonfly wings and stuff like that, just very kind of random, swirly I guess, but the top part of the wing I really wanted it to look like this, where it was kind of almost like a crystal shape in each spot. So I divided the top part of the wing into 2, and I did these 3 kind of crystal shapes, and then I did the same thing but upside down, and I did 4 of those just because I wanted to make it random. And then the middle section is just basically a line going across, and then the bottom section I just done this kind of half semicircle shape, and then I just did kind of a jagged line going up, and that was basically it. So I'll just hold this here so that you can pause to properly look at the design so you can get an idea. You obviously don't have to do the exact same design that I'm doing. You can use lots of reference photos on Google if you want to do something different. So now I'm just going to carry on doing the rest of the beading. Okay, so I've just completed all of the beads, and now I'm just going to show you the last little step, which I'm going to just use to attach to my headphones. So I'm basically just going to take a string of my main colour that I've been using, and I'm just going to kind of loop it into the back of the work. So I've got my hook, and I'm just going to tuck one strand of the yarn through the back of the work, and then I'm going to pull it across to the other side and then tuck that side through, and then I've basically just got a little strand that I can use as a ribbon. Then that is the fairy wings all complete. If you want to do a chain instead and just have it kind of where you can wrap it around and tie it off, you can do that as well, or you can just leave it as is, and you could use maybe some double-sided tape. I don't know if that would work fully, but it definitely would probably stick, but due to the weight of this it might not hold for a long time. So that is basically everything for this tutorial. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and let me know how you got on with your fairy wings. I'd love to see your final results, and I will see you all in the next tutorial. Bye guys.